submitted to me and listened to me, I could have saved our church. And she presented herself as a victim when she was just a witch.
I'm telling you, he's going to expose Kamala Harris for the Jezebel demon that she is.
The Jezebel spirit is literally working within most of the modern day women. Like, you watching this video right now, man, you have 100% came across the Jezebel spirit. There.
All this nonsense from the left, we are going to win. We're in the process of taking this country back. We are in the process of the Second American Revolution, which will remain bloodless if the left allows it to be.
That charming fella is named Kevin Roberts. He was born in the bowels of Isengard, and he and his shadowy religious group Opus Dei, along with the Heritage Foundation, have been very busy planning the overthrow of our government and, you know, our imminent subjugation. But even here you see Roberts giving us a choice. He's about freedom of choice, y'all. So don't worry. Don't lose sleep. We can sit back and let this small group of influential, wealthy elites turn our country into a society with all of us damned to serving them and their needs, while they plunder our natural resources, eliminate the Department of Education so they can use our children for slave labor, force women to be incubators to, you know, create more slave labor, slaughter our children on the altars of their gun fetishes, because there's going to be lots of leftover children once they ban contraception, sell off our federally protected vacation areas to developers for extraction of resources, blow the actual tops off of our mountains, and kill all of the wild horses. Yeah, we can do that or they'll kill us. So we've got a choice. Project 2025, which really more closely resembles that malicious project forged between the syndicate and the alien colonists from the X-Files than it does the Constitution, is finally getting the attention it deserves. But Trump assures us he has no idea what it is or who authored it, and if you're thinking he's a lying sack of flaming nasty, well, that's just rude. You have no proof of such a scurrilous accusation.
Somebody else doing an unbelievable job. He's bringing it back to levels it's never seen. Dr. Kevin Roberts. Kevin, thank you, Kevin.
Several Trump allies, though, do have ties to Project 2025, including two of its authors, Dr. Ben Carson and Ken Cuccinelli. Mark Meadows and Stephen Miller are with groups on Project 2025's advisory board. Senior advisor Peter Navarro, who is, of course, in prison, is also listed as an advisor.
Trump has said in the past, though, that he's moderated his comments since, that he has no idea who's in charge of Project 2025, and he didn't even know what it was. But Project 2025 and Donald Trump are inseparable. At least 140 Trump administration alumni helped create this document. Trump's running mate, J.D. Vance, wrote the foreword of an upcoming book authored by the architect of Project 2025, its new leader, Kevin Roberts. Today, we learned that publication of that book has been conveniently delayed until a week after the election. And tonight, the Washington Post reports that in April 2022, Donald Trump shared a 45-minute private flight with Roberts en route to a Heritage Foundation conference where Trump said in a keynote address, quote, "The group's policy proposals are going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do," end quote.
Last Mind Prayer was just another lie. So many lies. Jiminy Crickets, is exhausting. Anyway, Kevin Roberts, the Joseph Goebbels of the MAGA world, was inspired to try his hand at hate-spewing propaganda. Thus, Mein Kampf 2.0 was born. This book is resplendent with regressive resentment extolling the virtues of the new conservative movement, the federal conservative movement, and how they will use the federal government as a bludgeon against any and all of their cultural and economic foes. Real small government conservatives are gone. They have been slain, never to return. They are derided throughout this entire book. So Roberts tells us that big government can enforce a new America, one of faith, family, community, and work. Well, you know, for wealthy elitist white guys like himself, not for the rest of us. There isn't much expected of us. Basically, we just have to resign ourselves to this reptilian ruling class and their egomaniacal scheme to develop a dystopian, systemic, ruthless plan to undermine the quality of life of millions of Americans, remove critical protections, and dismantle programs for communities across the nation, and prioritize their elitist special interest and ideological extremism over people in order to extract the vital resources from people, places, and things to their benefit. My God, they're like reefers. It's such a heartless manifesto. The only thing not in there are old people's senior citizen homes with Soylent Green factories just right outside the back door. But do they just want to make America great again? That's all. For themselves, yeah, but they're looking in the rearview mirror and it's looking pretty good back there. They want to go back to a time when women were the vessels for the progeny of men. Stepford wives whose only purpose was to help their husbands perpetuate the illusion that they weren't male toddlers, unable and without any motivation to care for themselves, but deserving nonetheless, because they were men, of a subservient woman to help them maintain the illusion that they were superior. They will be living the high life, overseeing the subjugation of girls and women into birthing machines with no bodily autonomy, no birth control, no choice, forced birth. They will be completely ending reproductive freedom and replacing the Department of Health and Human Services with something called the Department of Life. It sounds creepy just saying it. Oh, the good old days.
I also want to look at an alternative plan for your agency. Now, this is Project 2025, which is Donald Trump's anti-environmental agenda. And I want to just note some of the main features of Project 2025. It includes shredding pollution regulations, gutting clean energy programs, repealing the Inflation Reduction Act, President Biden's climate law, which we know is landmark, and of course, empowering corporate polluters. Now, we know that Donald Trump's Project 2025 destroys the EPA.
Project 2025 is a far-right Christian nationalist agenda. By page 5, they're already proclaiming pornography should be outlawed, the people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned, educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. This would be alarming enough if they were talking about actual pornography. But their definition spans anything that acknowledges the existence of LGBTQ people. They claim on page 451 that families comprised of a married mother, father, and their children are the foundation of a well-ordered nation and healthy society, thereby designating queer people, single parents, unmarried co-parents, and people who get abortions as inherently inferior and a threat to the state. On page 584, they call for the Department of Labor to explicitly give companies permission to discriminate against LGBTQ Americans. On page 450, they also declare that life begins at conception, and abortion is, quote, not healthcare. Accordingly, the FDA would ban abortion medications, as detailed on page 458. The administration would also seek to strip abortion services and contraception from health plans.
I just would say, and if Alicia were sitting here and you could hear her, she would say that you are weaponizing a horrific murder to smear 11 million people.
That is a laughable assertion. What Joe Biden is doing is weaponizing the entire government.
Before we let you go, Dr. Roberts, I do want to ask you about abortion because it is a an issue that is at the top of mind for folks all over this country right now, waiting on a case from the Supreme Court, EMTALA. In Louisiana, in places all over this country. Abortion care is unavailable to people that may need it. You and the organization in this plan talks about changing the Department of Health and Human Services to the Department of Life. Do you think that women in America should be able to get an abortion if that is what their doctor says they need?
Abortion's not health care. I find it really interesting, if not worse, that you wouldn't support the change of the department name to the Department of Life. I thought we were all in support of life. We believe eminently in women's rights, and particularly women's rights in the womb. And so the real question that you should be asking
I just want to know, if I may, though, because I do ask the question.
Why aren't we talking about the people
who are
supporting legislation that abortion can happen until 3 days after the person's born? This is an absurd framing by this network.
That is an absurd assertion. As a person with an actual womb, I'm telling you that does not happen.
So
but let me just back up.
Legislators in California, Virginia, New York, who
Dr.
actually
Roberts,
filed those bills.
Does Heritage and Project 2025 believe that a woman should be able to have an abortion if her doctor says that she needs one? It's a yes or no question.
Abortion is not health care.
So
abortion
that is
is
a
the
no?
murder of a human being.
What's that cause? Our recent explication, or one recent explication you might have seen, you might have even signed, called for, quote, restoring to our nation a proper public orientation toward the virtues of patriotism and courage, honor and loyalty, religion and wisdom, congregation and family, man and woman, the Sabbath and the sacred, and reason and justice. A much older rendering commands us to tend and keep the garden from those who would be as gods. Today, our garden, our homes and families, our nation, the West, is besieged by three mortal threats: the Stalinist cult of wokeism, the Chinese Communist Party's genocidal regime in Beijing, and the globalist technocratic elite that profits off both by surveilling, deplatforming, and dehumanizing anyone who resists their Pharisaic tyranny.
As you can see, Roberts is just another pretentious far-right gas bag, a legend in his own mind. Smarmy, patriarchal, Dunning-Kruger rat bastard. I'll stop before I say something unkind. He says his childhood resonates with J.D. Vance because they grew up in similar poor circumstances. But what they do is they both project their childhood trauma onto everyone else, especially women. He thought he could rise above it by highly educating himself. He thought he could rise above it by starting this hard right Catholic school and indoctrinating children with his very ordered rhetoric and banning the children from wokest ideas that, you know, they think for themselves, study both sides of a matter, then decide for themselves what it is they believe about their faith, their communities, and their world. He thinks he can do it by not just imposing, but forcing his religious dogma onto everyone. And if they don't like it, well, what, they're gonna die? Why did he not list Russia in his admonition against bad actors seeking to harm the United States? Does he have a hard-on for Putin too? He is so blinded by his own trauma that he doesn't see the real danger, only that which he has created in his mind. Nor does he see the beauty of this world or the diversity of the people in it, either by ignorance or by design. He lives in the darkest of places, and he mocks the condition and healing power of love. Women, the women he disdains, could teach him much about healing trauma, the resilience of a people who have been hung, burned, raped, tortured, because they dared to stand out, because they were different. You know, you can weaponize your trauma and destroy the world, or you can face it, let it teach you the lesson, let it go, and allow yourself to heal. The rise and fall of Hitler, who these guys seem to love, is a cautionary tale, to say the least. You'd think a guy that had a doctorate in history could learn from it. You can destroy other people's worlds by projecting your unresolved trauma onto them and projecting everything wrong with you onto them. But in the end, you stand there in a destroyed world alone, bearing a trauma that will not die. Irresponsible guys like this who are currently seeking to subjugate women don't even know the basic biology of women. They think that ectopic pregnancies can be transplanted into the womb. You heard him there. Abortion isn't health care. It's murder. He either doesn't know or doesn't care that up to 26% of all pregnancies end in spontaneous abortion or miscarriage. Oftentimes, when that happens, women need a D&C, which is the same procedure used for abortion. Because of these regressive bans, women are not getting the health care they need. They are being turned away from hospitals and emergency rooms all over the country in droves. The national emergency that no one is talking about. The horror stories are growing, and they're only going to get worse, and people like Roberts don't want to mitigate it because they are fetishizing pregnancy from a place of ignorance, and women deserve to be punished. So I've been going over this Project 2025. In the next few weeks, I'll go over some of the fine print so we can see their ominous plans for us. I just feel like I had to do something. So thank you for joining me. If no one has told you today that you're important and that you matter, you are and you do. Keep the faith that good will overcome evil.